Why do I keep talking about bigotry and atrocities committed in Nigeria by the Fulani Cabal and now by the Tinubu and his Yoruba bigots, especially in Lagos? I didn't say Yorubas are bigots. I said Tinubu and his Yoruba bigots. The Fulani Cabal would like to sweep everything under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. And while they are doing that, try to tell you that Igbos are just troublemakers. And I say, I'll be the #1 troublemaker. I'll keep reminding Nigerians exactly the atrocities that has been committed in Nigeria and the atrocities that the Fulani Cabal and the Yoruba bigots of Bola Ahmed Tinubu continue to commit in Nigeria. And until we have more people, little people like me, saying it and throwing it in their face and embarrass them to change. Because in Igbo land we say, the bigotry in Nigeria has become tradition, and the people who perpetuate it don't see themselves doing anything wrong anymore. We have to make them know their acts are a disgrace to nationhood, and their acts, be them Yoruba or Fulani, is a disgrace to humanity. And I'm sorry if it's sounding like a broken record, but this record is going to continue to be sounded until we see change. Listen to the arrogance of this Hausa Fulani man who thinks he owns Nigeria and can say when we can have Biafra or when we can't have Biafra. Just listen.
Nigeria has had to fight two terrible wars to preserve the country. The North has paid its dues in that war, and indeed in many ways throughout the history of our country. Under our current circumstances, no Nigerian should welcome another war to keep this country together. The North in particular has more than enough challenges, and we recognize that violent secession by any part of Nigeria will compound the problems of all Nigerians under which we live. The forum has arrived at the difficult conclusion that if support for secession among the Igbo is as widespread as it is being made to look, and Igbo leadership appears to be in support of it, then the country should be advised not to stand in its way. It will not be in the interest, it will not be the best choice for the Igbo or Nigerians to leave a country we have all toiled to build and a country we all have responsibility to fix. But it will not help a country already burdened with failures on its knees to fight another war to keep the Igbo in Nigeria.
Hello everybody. Once again, this is Fred Wanko coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bull Talk on LNTV. And as usual, I like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on where you are around the world. First of all, before I get started, let me clarify that I do understand viewers and critics who may feel that I continue to stoke the flame of prejudice. Yes, I do. But only a biased viewer would say that I'm stoking the flame of prejudice from a personal prejudice standpoint. I stoke the flame of prejudice because Nigeria is a country filled with contradictions and prejudices. And for so many years, these prejudices have taken hold, and the bigots that are the ones who really stoke that prejudice have started to believe, on one hand, that their lies are true. Here is a case in point. Just listen.
We talk about, oh, let's do regional government. Who destroyed regional government? Agu Yorunsi. Remember Nandi Azikiwe is Anambra man. Agu Yorunsi is Abia State man. Chukwuma Nzogo from Delta or Bendel did what he did. He gave opportunity to Agu Yorunsi from Abia to take over the leadership of Nigeria. The first thing he did was to collapse the whole region. Not because he loved Ndibu, not because he wanted the good of Nigeria. He wanted to control the money from cocoa. He wanted to control the money from granite. He wanted to control the money from crude oil. Cocoa from the west, granite from the north, crude oil from the south. He wanted to control all of them because during the regional government, every region controlled their resources. Of course, we have coal in Enugu, so they wanted to control all the money. And they said, yes, as the military general of Nigeria, there is nothing like religion again. All the money must come to my table as General Agun Yorusi. And meanwhile, there is blood spilling. The blood of the Yoruba man on the ground, the blood of the Hausa man littered everywhere, even the ocean. No single Igbo man died. He didn't address that issue. He left that issue. Allow Hausa to plan very well for the Igbo man what you are suffering today. And Agu Yorunsi created our one loving one Nigeria. Today, the same Igbo man is saying, we need the regional, we need the regional, we need the regional. And you as Igbo man, do you have the balls to go and interview Ogoni man? And say, please tell me the truth. What happened during the war? Ogoniman will tell you that during the war, Igbo Ojuku soldiers were dividing their property. They will be looking at them. And in most cases, they give them gun and push them into the war front. Just to kill them and collect their property. It happened across the whole of South. When you hear wounded civilians shouting, they want to take over my place. The atrocity of this same criminal I'm pointing out to you was why Ambazonia went to Cameroon. Ambazonia were reporting to eastern region of Nigeria. Ambazonia, your Bakassi Peninsula were all Nigeria. Little wonder you have Anglophone and Francophone in Cameroon. All those Anglophone in Cameroon were part of Nigeria, reporting to Enugu state jurisdiction. What did Igbo people do to them? Now, remove this toxic from yourself.
The shame of Nigeria is exhibited in that 3-minute soundbite. Lies like those is what Yoruba bigots led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu today. It started before Tinubu, but today it's led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Bayo Ononuga and Dele Alake. Those are the three-headed monster of bigotry in Yoruba land. But more importantly, not bigotry. Most Nigerians can be bigoted across the country. That's not the issue. But a structured, concerted effort to lie against a certain segment of the country is a craft that has been perfected by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by Ononuga, and Dele Alake. Let's take that discussion point by point. Agu Yorunsi changed the Nigerian federal system that operated before the coup and implemented the unitary system which we operate today. Remember that after the coup, Aguiyi-Ironsi was made head of state, not by Ojukwu, not by Igbos, but by the people who were really controlling the cabal, micromanaged from Britain. Aguiyi-Ironsi became head of state because Ahmadu Bello and his puppet prime minister, Tafawa Balewa, I used puppet figuratively. Tafawa Balewa was not a bad person, but he was puppeted and micromanaged by Ahmadu Bello, who we know his history on bigotry. Aguiyi-Ironsi also knew that the people who put him in power are actually controlling the military in Nigeria. So as a more or less puppet head of state of Nigeria, which Aguiyi-Ironsi was, do you think he made the decision for unitary government based on his dictatorship, or was it a decision made by the Supreme Military Council, of which the Fulani was fully represented in, and other Nigerians were there, but the main people who called the shots from January 1966 till Aguiyi-Ironsi was killed was this behind the scenes management of the Fulani Cabal, Muritala Mohammed, Hassan Katsina, and whoever else was involved. So how could Aguiyi-Ironsi change the system of governance to control Nigeria in a place where he was governing gingerly, scared of the gun that's to his head? That's one part. Now let's go to the Ogoni guys, thinking that Igbos want to take their property. What property? What property did Ogoni guys, Ogoni people own? Presumably in Port Harcourt, that's where property was worth anything. If Ogoni people owned the property Igbos were trying to take, how come we have the issue of abandoned properties in Port Harcourt? Who took whose property? The ignorance of a Yoruba man coached by Bayo Ononuga, who doesn't understand the history of Nigeria, but only understands one mission: how to tell lies against a people to brainwash his people, who are now the bigots that follow Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And finally, the Ambazonia situation, which is the Anglo-Cameroon situation, where they have a Biafran issue at hand. I was born in Cameroon. I moved to Lagos after they joined Cameroon. And Nigerians there had to move to Nigeria. My father was posted to Lagos. I have my share of Cameroonian friends, and I maintain my Cameroon roots. And I talk with a lot of my Cameroon friends from the Bamenda area, from the Mamfe area, which is the significant portion of that area that's Ambazonia. And I'll tell you this, and I could bring in Cameroonians into my studio and find a Yoruba bigot who would like to join. And they will tell you to the last one that they regret going with Cameroon instead of staying with Nigeria, and that they were brainwashed to go with Cameroon because the leader, I don't know if it's Fanchi, one of the leaders was Fanchi, the other one wanted them to stay with Nigeria, one wanted them to stay with Cameroon. The one who wanted them to stay with Cameroon brainwashed them and told them, do not go to Nigeria, Igbos will dominate you. Believe me, it's time to let Igbos go to Biafra. You know why? Even if you fix Nigeria today, and everybody is happy because we've settled the differences and everything is going well, a myopic mind like these bigots in Yoruba land are still going to say that Igbos are trying to dominate them because you can't subdue the Igbo man. He doesn't want to dominate you. But when you can't compete and he's winning in the contest, you call it domination. If you're playing a soccer game and a team beats the other team 5-0, is the team trying to dominate, or is it that the team is better? If you don't want Igbos to dominate you, take your time and go and learn your craft, regardless of what your craft is. If you don't learn your craft, and we live in the same country, I don't care where it is, whether it's Lagos or Ibadan, as long as they say the country belongs to everybody, anybody can live anywhere, an Igbo man is not going to come to Lagos and sit back because a lazy Yoruba man who prefers to be thugging around the streets of Lagos doesn't want to work hard. An Igbo man is working hard and achieving and building things, and you say he wants to dominate you. To hell with you. He's going to dominate you. In this case, I'm talking directly, especially to the Fulani Cabal in the north and Tinubu's bigots in the southwest. If I tell you that I oppose any serious movement for Biafra, I'll be lying. But I must also say that I'm open to honest negotiating of the conditions to be Nigerians. And if those conditions don't exist, we have no business being part of Nigeria, we being the Igbos. And the reason I preempted this episode with the nonsense you just heard from Dr. Kakeem Baba Ahmed, ironically, he's Dati Baba Ahmed's brother. And can you see the night and day on the way these two brothers look at the same country? And this is why I like to say, regardless of all the hate that comes from the Fulani Cabal against the Igbos, I always try to say, it's not all Fulanis. This is a case in point. This ignorant, educated idiot called Dr. Kakeem Baba Ahmed is of the same mother and the same father as Dati Baba Ahmed. But they see two different Nigerias. He sees a Nigeria where the Fulani decides the fate of everybody else. If Igbos feel they no longer want to be in Nigeria, they in the Northern Forum, whatever forum that is, have come to the decision that to prevent another war in Nigeria, maybe it's time to let the Igbos go. Who the hell are they? That's a decision Igbos and Nigerians make, not a decision Fulanis in their caucus in some stupid kitchen and eating whatever they are eating decide whether Igbos can go and whether Oduduwas can go or whether the Delta people can go. Who the hell is Dr. Kakeem Baba Ahmed and the people he represents in that forum? The decision the North has made to appease Igbos. What else are you going to appease Igbos for? Are you going to appease Igbos for the blood you wasted that was unnecessary based on your lies? Are you going to appease Igbos for the atrocities you've committed against them since the war ended, both covertly and overtly? Are you going to appease Igbos for shutting them out of any significant decisions made in Nigeria since 1970? Are you going to appease Igbos for the underdevelopment of Igbo land since the war ended because you covertly, strategically ensured that no significant federal presence that can improve the economy of the 5 Igbo states is given the light of day? In this episode, I want to continue to stress the fact that evidence is now coming out on a daily basis to show that Igbos had nothing to do from a selfish Igbo standpoint with that civil war. That civil war was planned by good, honest Nigerians, including Igbos, including good Northerners, and good Westerners, and good Midwesterners, and good Nigerians from across the board to save Nigeria from what eventually has happened to Nigeria, which is the domination of Nigeria by a northern cabal, a Fulani cabal that is relentless in their effort to Islamize Nigeria and make Nigeria a place that everybody else is their slave unless you're Muslim in the way they practice the Muslim religion. That's the bane of the issue in Nigeria. Is anybody not convinced that that coup was planned to depose the corrupt leaders of Nigeria, be them Igbo, Yoruba, Fulani, Edo, or whatever, and install the only person the soldiers at the time felt was radical enough in his good ideas about Nigeria? And that person that they wanted to impose was Chief Obafemi Awolowo. 2 episodes ago, I presented a detailed interview by a very good Nigerian journalist and a highly respected Yoruba elder that discussed how that coup was planned, what the intention was, and everything that went with it. And today, I'm continuing to show you sound bites from different sources, not Igbos, foreign sources, about Biafra and the atrocities that Nigeria committed against innocent Igbos in that war that was intended to wipe out the Igbo population so that the Fulani could have a free reign across southern Nigeria.
as a protest against violence and war, especially Britain's involvement in Biafra, which most of the British public aren't aware of, because all the press, TV and radios slant all the news from Biafra. All the stuff I learnt on Biafra from journalists, off-the-cuff folks, is a different story, and I began to be ashamed of being British. And I'm a patriotic nationalist, if the truth were out, and Yoko can vouch for that. I'm always fighting about what Britain invented, radar, and what all the different things we've done. But every day I just began to worry a bit more about it, and I was going to send the MBE back anyway. I could have done it privately, but the press would have found out anyway. He would have been here a week later instead, less impact.
So now, while the Fulani Cabal is concocting all kinds of lies about Igbo's involvement in the war, and Tinubu's Yoruba bigots, not Yoruba people, Tinubu's bigots in Yoruba land, are pretending that Biafra never happened. Very famous people outside Nigeria were protesting on behalf of Biafra against the governments of their countries. Here is some of them.
This video is about how the Nigerian Biafran War changed the life of Steve Jobs, the founder of the company that makes the iPhone and MacBook computers. The Nigerian Civil War, also known as the Nigerian Biafran War, was a civil war fought between Nigeria and the Republic of Biafra, a secessionist state that declared its independence from Nigeria in 1967. Steve Jobs is an American and was not in Nigeria during the Nigerian Biafran Civil War, but the war changed his life. Yes, Steve Jobs denounced his Christian faith because of the war. In the early days of his life, he was very constant in the church. Steve Jobs was a deep believer of the Christian faith. The Biafran War broke out in 1967, and by 1968, the war was being reported as a genocide against the Christian Biafrans by Nigeria and her allies, and there were different pictures of starving Biafran children being circulated by the media. The starving Biafran children thing happened as a result of the food blockade against the Biafrans by the Nigerian government. In 1968, when Steve Jobs was just 13 years old, he went to church one day while others were carrying a Bible. He was carrying a 1968 edition of Life magazine, which featured a pair of starving children from Biafra on the front cover. He approached the church minister and asked if I raise my finger. "Will God know which one I'm going to raise even before I do it?" The pastor answered, "Yes, God knows everything." Steve Jobs then pulled out the magazine cover and asked, "Well, does God know about this and what's going to happen to those children?" And the pastor responded, "Steve, I know you don't understand, but yes, God knows about that." Essentially, Jobs' initial encounters with Christianity seemed hampered by the age-old philosophical dilemma, known as the problem of evil, the notion that the coexistence of God's benevolence, omnipotence, and the existence of evil is untenable. To Jobs, if God truly embodied the loving and powerful attributes espoused by Christianity, then the existence of suffering, particularly among innocent children, would be inconceivable. However, given the stark reality of such injustices, the notion of an all-loving and all-powerful deity appeared implausible to him. That is the story of how the Nigerian Biafran War changed the life of Steve Jobs.
I bring you these things because the bigots amongst us in Lagos and the Fulani Cabal would like to sweep everything under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. And while they are doing that, try to tell you that Igbos are just troublemakers. And I say, I'll be the number one troublemaker. I'll keep reminding Nigerians exactly the atrocities that has been committed in Nigeria and the atrocities that the Fulani Cabal and the Yoruba bigots of Bola Ahmed Tinubu continue to commit in Nigeria. And until we have more people little people like me, saying it and throwing it in their face and embarrass them to change. Because in Igbo land we say, the bigotry in Nigeria has become tradition, and the people who perpetuate it don't see themselves doing anything wrong anymore. We have to make them know that they are disgraceful. Their acts are a disgrace to nationhood, and their acts, be them Yoruba or Fulani, is a disgrace to humanity. Folks, I don't care how sick it makes Nigerians with an agenda. Not Nigerians, the ones who have an agenda. My goal is to make you sick to your stomach. And I'm gonna keep bringing out evidence every time I find them to support what I'm saying. And to the Igbo people that continue to pretend that everything is fine and don't want to challenge their Yoruba friends to make them take a stand on this bigotry that's exhibited by some of their brothers and sisters. What is it? You just want to sweep it under the rug and keep hugging and kissing and pretending everything is fine? Everything is not fine until you speak about the atrocities in Nigeria to the face of some people who may be part of those atrocities and embarrass them. They are not going to stop. I wish I could say I'm sorry for keep throwing this in your face, but I'm not. And I'm gonna keep throwing it in your face. Don't watch. And for those of you who like what I'm saying, what's wrong with sharing? Why don't you share the video? If what I'm saying makes sense, how do you think it's gonna get to the people if you don't click share and share the video with your friends and like? If there's enough likes, even YouTube is gonna use algorithms to get it to the kind of places where people like you who like it. It's incumbent on you to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the video. It doesn't cost you a penny to subscribe. So what's the big deal? It costs you money to sponsor me. I need sponsors. Many of you keep saying, oh, Fred, it's great. I like what's going on. Well, support what Fred is doing. This is my job. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Fred Wonko coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And until next time, good night and God bless.
Onye mazolo bio akwa nwa zoro bio Max ibia bunye gokwanu mo no fube nazo olaga ni biazugo mmanwu olaga do ni biazugo akwa nwa wilochi o biko rapuzo kona bazia never be kitchen for I'm a Pamnika Gogadia. Well, you work well he catch up a bag. Hey, you want? A dog can never be kitchen for I'm a Pamnika Gogadia. igwekwelu ike jọba belebege Igbo egwu kampụ na-ekene ọmọgọ ndị nsọ Chukwu emekalụmụ ike Chukwu na-egaji esi nwanne m ekene ịlapụlụ ife niile na-eme wee bịa nke gosili na anyị na gị bụ nwanne wisdom ga-adị ka nye gị maịkị ka ogobanya bụ egwu esili maxi ọ bụ na-etiri egwu a malụkwa malụ n'imego m ife ọjọọ wee sị gị nwanne m ife ọbụ na ịchọlụ na ngeme wisdom onume ekene gị gbamanwụ iyo biko lapụ nabasị ya zoro 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 Joy na bugwa Hausa Sokoto Ujembe nwilo anụ solo nwe ma n'ọfịa n'ara onye